Hello! Welcome to Mario Kart Tour 101. Today we're going to be answering the question, which driver kart or glider should I choose? It's a question that often comes up on Reddit, and there's usually a simple answer, so I'm going to be giving you the skills that you need to decide which driver kart and glider are going to be your best options for getting high scores in your single-player races in Mario Kart Tour. And it starts out with a simple heuristic. Remember, shelf, level, base points, rarity, skill. Those are the factors in decreasing order of importance that usually go into deciding which driver kart or glider you should choose. Shelf is by far the most important. Use a top shelf item, meaning it's in the top row of that driver kart or glider selection screen, if at all possible, followed by level and base points. And some factors that people commonly think of are actually at the bottom of the list, like rarity, whether something's super normal and high-end, or skill, particularly kart and glider skills, which are a lot less important than the level and base points of the items that you're picking. So this is not an exact hierarchy. Sometimes driver skill can become more important, and we'll talk about that later in the video. And if you don't have a top shelf available, then base points might be slightly more important than the level of your items, but the level still does have an impact. So let's take a look at how you would pick between drivers, karts, and gliders on each shelf. So remember, when you're deciding which driver kart or glider to use, prioritize top shelf items because the shelf is the most important factor. If you're using middle or bottom shelf items, you're never going to score as high as you will by using the top shelf items in your inventory. Now, when you're picking between top shelf items, you want to pick the item that gives you the highest combination of level times base points. So you actually multiply the level times the base points. I'll show you a couple examples of how to do that. And if they come out equal for two or more items, or if they're close enough, like within 100 points, that you can consider them equal, then you can choose between them using other factors as a tiebreaker, and that could include rarity, super normal or high-end, could include the special skill at that point, the hitbox, which is the size of a kart or a driver, or just personal preference. You could use which one you like. So that's to pick between top shelf items. You want to pick whatever has the highest level times base points, and then rely on other factors as a tiebreaker. What if you have no top shelf driver, kart, or glider? Well then, you're going to pick from the middle shelf if possible. You still want to prioritize middle shelf above the bottom shelf items. You typically want to pick the item at that point that has the highest base points from the highest level shelf you have available. And that's because level factors in more for top shelf items because it contributes to the bonus points boost, which is a scoring contribution that only occurs when you're using a top shelf item. So you want to prioritize base points for middle shelf items, and then you can use level as one of the tie-breaking factors, along with the other things we discussed earlier, such as rarity, skill, size of the kart or driver, or personal preference. So to summarize that, for top shelf items, level is the more important of those two factors, and base points are used as a tiebreaker. And if it's close, which means within 1 to 2 levels of each other, then you would want to use the formula level times base points to double check which is the best option. Whereas for middle or bottom shelf, base points actually are typically more important. Level can still be used as a tiebreaker because it does still have some impact. And remember, you should only be using middle or bottom shelf items if you have no top shelf available, because the number one rule for picking your driver kart or glider is to use a top shelf DKG driver kart or glider if you have one available, because shelf is the most important factor in determining your score. So let's look at a few examples of how to pick between top shelf items. Remember, for top shelf items, level is the most important factor, but we will use base points to break ties, or we'll use this formula level times base points to decide which is the better option if it's close. So in this top shelf, you see there are 3 high-end drivers. One of them is a coin box driver, and you may have heard coin box is the best special skill for drivers. So you might wonder, is it better to use Pauline Party Time because she's a coin box driver? Or should I use Metal Mario because he's level 4 and a high-end driver? Well, the actual answer is level is the most important factor, so you should use Rosalina, even though she's a super driver, because she is level 6, and so she is by far your highest level driver on this top shelf. She also happens to have the highest base points, right? So that would be used as the next factor after level, but she's clearly the highest level driver, so that's who you would pick for this top shelf. Let's look at an example of picking a top shelf glider. So here I have the Planet Glider, which is a high-end glider. It has 400 base points. And I have the Mushroom Glider, which is a super glider, and it has 330 base points. So you might look at this and think, maybe you should pick the high end because it has more base points and because it's a high end instead of a super. But in fact, level being the most important factor means that you should pick the Mushroom Glider in this situation. And because that's a level 2 and the other is only level 1. Now I did say if it's close, like they're within 1 to 2 levels of each other, you can double check that using the formula level times base points. But typically, if you're comparing anything to a level 1, the higher level item is always going to beat a level 1, just because of that multiplier that it gets. But 1 times 400 is 400, and 2 times 330 is 660. So even if you double check it, you will find the Mushroom Glider comes out ahead in the lead. And you would pick that over the Planet Glider because it's a level 2 as opposed to a level 1. Now here's a situation where I have a level 4 super driver and a level 3 high-end driver, but the high-end driver has been single capped and has significantly more base points than the super. So this is a situation where it's close because they're within 1 to 2 levels of each other, and I'm going to want to check this using the formula level times base points. So for Peach, the super driver, she's a level 4. 4 times, if we round that, 700 would be 2800. It's okay to round that off a little bit. And 3 for Builder Toad times 1,000 base points would be 3,000. And so therefore, Builder Toad, even though he's only level 3, is actually the better driver in this situation, which you may not have expected if you didn't use that formula. And if you use the exact numbers instead of rounding off, you still get 4 times 675 is now 2,700, and 3 times 980 is now 2,940. So it's actually still about 200 points in the favor of Builder Toad. So you can see from this formula level times base points that Builder Toad is actually the best option here, even though he's only level 3, because the combination of level times base points is more than for Peach. Now, with that being said, I want to use this example to also point out something that you'll see, which is I'm using the formula level times base points, but some people will tell you to use the formula level minus 1 times base points. And they're not wrong, and I'm not wrong. It's a different way of looking at it, but I'm going to explain where that formula comes from and why I think that level times base points is more accurate more of the time. And the reason is level minus 1 times base points comes from the formula for bonus points boost, which is a calculation that gets added to your score when you're using top shelf items. That's why level is the most important factor for top shelf, because it factors into this calculation, which takes into account the bonus points boost. If you're not sure what bonus points boost is, go ahead and watch the other video in this series, how scoring works in Mario Kart Tour, so you can understand what the bonus points boost is and why that's important. But if I'm using these items and I want to pick between them, the formula level minus 1 times base points would be for Peach 3 times about 700, 2,100, and for Builder Toad 2 times about 1,000, 2,000. And so in that situation, it seems like Peach is the better choice. And if I use the exact numbers, 3 times 675, it comes out to 2,025, I think. And for 2 times 980 comes out to 1960. It's still in the favor of Peach, but it's only about 65 points ahead. What that shows is that Peach is going to score more points for every action, slightly more, like about 1 point more for each action in the race, 0.65 to be exact. And that's because the formula for bonus points boost is level minus 1 times base points over 100 to get the bonus points boost per action. And if you don't divide by 100, if you just use level minus 1 times base points, then what you're getting is the bonus points boost she'll earn for every 100 actions in the race. But remember, it caps out at 200 actions. You only can get a bonus points boost for up to the first 200 actions in the race. So the most that Peach could come out ahead of Builder Toad from bonus points boost is 2 times that 65 point difference, so 130 point difference. However, what that doesn't take into account is that Builder Toad starts the race with 300 more base points than Peach. So therefore, if Peach can only make up a difference of 130 points through that bonus points boost, if she maxes out 200 actions in a long race, The 130 points is not going to make up for a 300-point difference on the starting line. You are certainly going to score higher with Builder Toad in this race than you are going to with Peach. And that's where I think the formula level times base points is more accurate the majority of the time. Because if you take level minus 1 times base points, which just accounts for the bonus points boost you'd get for 100 actions, but if you add into that 1 times the base points, which is the base point that you'd see on the starting line, when you add those together, you're going to get level times base points. If you know the distributive property from math, you'll know that's level minus 1 plus 1 times the base points, which is just a level times the base points. So that is the reason that the formula level times base points is so useful for picking your driver, kart, and glider. You will hear people tell you to use level minus 1 times base points, but level times base points actually takes into account not only the bonus points boost, but also the difference in base points that you're going to see on the starting line for these two items. So therefore, that's why I'm suggesting you use level times base points to pick between items. Now, if you don't like multiplying the numbers yourself, you can find charts such as this one on Reddit or Discord, which do the multiplication for you. They pre-calculate the bonus points boost contribution. So that's using the formula level minus 1 times base points. It doesn't include the actual base point contribution at the starting line. But these are really helpful to see which driver, kart, or glider is going to give you the higher bonus points boost. This is an example that was from before they added the quad cap. So this only goes up to triple cap, and the triple cap values are a little different now, like it would be 715 and 1430. But if you have your drivers maxed out at a certain cap level, you'd look on the bottom set here, which is driver base points. So Builder Toad in the previous example had 980 base points and was level 3. So therefore that shows 19.6, which is like the 1960 that I calculated from level minus 1 times base points, but divided by 100. Peach was 675 base points and level 4. And you see here 20.25, which is the 2025 I calculated earlier, divided by 100. Peach is higher. It's by 0.65. That's why I said she's going to earn 0.65 approximately extra points for every action during the race. However, the most she's going to make up is the 130 points, 200 times that difference if it's a long 200 action race, and less than that in short races. So even though it seems like you would pick Peach because that number's higher, you actually would end up scoring better with Builder Toad because of the extra base points with the 980 base points. So that's what I'm saying is when you use this chart, be aware it's using the formula level minus 1 times base points and not the formula level times base points. But look, if it comes out where one formula tells you to use one driver and the other formula tells you the other one, they're honestly probably going to score within 100 or 200 points of each other anyway, and so it really doesn't matter. You could probably use whichever one you like. But that's just to give you an idea that there's a way to do this that's pre-calculated for you without having to multiply yourself every time. Here's another example of this chart. This one is sorting with drivers on the left and then karts and gliders on the right. Again, it will be updated now that we have a quad cap, but there's different versions of these charts you can see. This one even starts at level 2 instead of level 1 because there is no bonus points boost at level 1, so they just go straight to level 2. So you have those available. So to review, for top shelf items, the level is more important. You would use base points to break ties when you have items that are equal level. And if they're close, like 1 or 2 level difference, and like in this case, if the lower level item has more base points, then you can actually use the formula level times base points to double check. And that's how we figured out that Builder Toad was the better option in this situation. So now let's look at a few examples of picking from the middle or bottom shelf. Remember, you should only do this if you have no top shelf available, and you should still try and go to middle shelf if possible, so you use the highest shelf that you have available on the selection screen. In middle or bottom shelf, the base points tend to become more important because there's no bonus points boost calculation the way that there would have been for a top shelf item. So you would use base points first and then use level to break ties. There is still some impact that level has. People will tell you that level only matters for top shelf. The truth is it matters most for top shelf, but it can have a tie-breaking influence on middle shelf items as well. So here's an example of a middle shelf glider selection. If I had no top shelf glider for this course, I could pick between these two. You see that one of them's level 5, the other's level 2, and you might wonder which one should I use. Well, the answer is that on middle shelf, typically you'll use the one with the higher base points. So although the top shelf would have prioritized level, there's no multiplicative factor like there is for the bonus points boost contribution for top shelf. So you want to use the higher base point item, which is the Dry Bowser Umbrella in this example, because it has almost 200 additional base points that you're going to score compared to the BBIA Parafoil. Now, one exception to that is with a Giant Banana Driver. You might get enough extra points from having that banana skill to actually make it worthwhile, but we'll cover that later because that's an exception to the rule. We'll cover that in the deep dive on gliders at the end of this video. For now, in most situations, you should just know to pick the higher base point item, which is the Dry Bowser Umbrella. Here's another example, this time between middle shelf drivers. So if I had no top shelf driver on this course, I could pick between the middle shelf options here, probably by looking at which one has the highest base points, and that would be Luigi, Builder Luigi here, because even though he's only level 3, he's got 980 base points. The level 3 to level 6 difference is not going to make that big a difference. For drivers, the only difference it makes is at level 4, the high ends, or at level 5, the supers, get the plus version of their item, which means that you would have like 4 hammers instead of 3, or you'd have a slightly bigger Bowser shell. And where that makes the most impact is actually for coin boxes, because you can get red coins out of the coin box. But we'll talk about that in the driver deep dive. But you would pick Builder Luigi here, even though Bowser Jr. is level 6, because Builder Luigi has the higher base points, and it's 110 base point difference, and you'd probably end up with 110 point difference at the finish line. So it's not that big of a deal. If you like using the Bowser shell as a special skill, and you think to yourself, there's a 110 point difference, but if I get a good Bowser shell and I hang back on the first lap and shoot the Bowser shell and get a few hits, if you know that you're going to be able to make up for the 100 point difference that way, you're welcome to choose Bowser Jr. and use that instead. It's honestly not going to be a big difference either way. If you have identical races, you'll have about 100 point difference. If you think you can get a better race with Bowser Jr., more power to you. You know, rock 'em. But the point is, for top shelf items, the level and the base points make a big difference. For middle shelf, they kind of make a minor difference, but it probably doesn't matter which one you choose. You can kind of choose based on personal preference. Here's the last example. This is middle or bottom shelf. Again, you could choose here based on personal preference. You're probably going to want to pick the Butterfly Prism, because it's level 2 and the other items are level 1. They all have equal base points, and that's why I put this in as an example. So since the base points are all 400, you would want to use level as a tiebreaker. So this is an example where the level 2 glider would give you a slightly higher combo time, is what it would do, compared to the level 1 gliders. And so it might make it easier, or like slightly less likely for you to drop combo during the race, and therefore end up with a higher score at the end of the race. But again, if you're using, for example, like a Bob-omb Cannon or double Bob-omb Driver, they've now updated the game so that the glider special skills do apply to driver-specific items. So if you think you're going to count on getting Bob-ombs at some point during the race and you want to use the level 1s here, go for it. Just know that you're going to have a slightly lower combo time, because the effect of level for a middle shelf glider is that it still affects the combo time that you get, that you have to keep combo before you do the next action. So those were some middle shelf examples. Now that you know the basic rule for picking drivers, karts, and gliders from the top shelf, as well as picking from middle or bottom shelf if necessary, I'm going to split off the deep dive into drivers, karts, and gliders into a second video. We're going to talk about why it's important to pick from top shelf, whether there are any exceptions, and any specific considerations that just apply to one of those categories. So look for that second video, the deep dive into which driver, kart, or glider should I choose. If you're enjoying this content, please don't forget to leave a like on the video and let me know in the comments if there is anything else that you'd like to know about that you think would make a fun, informative Mario Kart Tour video. See you soon!